Hey guys, it's time for a celebrity chart reading. I wasn't going to do a video right now, but this person is very topical at the moment. I feel like everyone's talking about her, and I myself have really enjoyed her music as well. And for whatever reason, I think it was, I saw her in an interview or something, and she just seemed like she had a very interesting and kind of attractive personality. And so I looked up her chart, and her chart struck me as particularly interesting. So, what we're going to do today, I'm going to do my best to make this a brief chart reading. Although, those of you that know me, you know that I I often fail at that because I get into the astrology and I'm not one to turn down a tangent. So these things I can ramble, I'm gonna be honest, but I'll do my best to make this concise. And plus, to be totally honest, I have a date in a little bit. It's not a big deal, but okay, so let's get in here. And I'm gonna ask for some help from you because I've to be totally honest, I've only known about her for a couple weeks, maybe 2 or 3 weeks at this time, and I don't know how to say her name. I looked it up, I did my research, and I swear every other video I find that talks about how to pronounce her name says it differently. Half of them say Chappell Roan and half of them say Chappell Roan. So if she's mentioned it, or I don't know how you verify that, please let me know. I would really love to know. But anyway, this chart reading will be for Thursday, February 19th, 1998. Man, she's a youngin'. I feel so old. But anyway, 10:05 p.m. in Willard, Missouri. This means she has Pisces Sun, Sagittarius Moon with Libra rising. So the first thing I noticed about her chart, because like I said, I did look this up very briefly a few days ago. I don't know when that was. What's really interesting about her chart, in my opinion, is how much Jupiter energy there is, and to a lesser extent Venus as well. Venus and Jupiter are the two easiest planets to work with in astrology. They bring abundance and light and pleasure, and they make things fun. So if you have a lot of Jupiter and or Venus very strong in your chart, that means that not only are you very fun and pleasurable to be around, but also you're probably going to have a lot of fun in your life as well. These things go hand in hand. They go in both directions, right? So what I'm talking about here is, this honestly makes me jealous. I would love some of this energy more so in my chart. But what she's got going on is Sun and Jupiter, Moon and Sagittarius. So both luminaries are in the two Jupiter ruled signs, Sun and Pisces, Moon and Sagittarius. Both Pisces and Jupiter both Pisces and Sagittarius are ruled by Jupiter. So that's where you have this luck, expansion, you could even say fame and fortune. Not everyone with Sun and Pisces, Moon and Sagittarius is going to be as famous as this person. But yeah, this person's going to come across larger than life and, fantastical. So that's that Jupiter influence. Not only that, though, but Sun is actually conjunct Jupiter as well. And Jupiter is in Pisces, which it rules. So Jupiter rules itself. It's a final dispositor. And it's conjunct the Sun. Huge Jupiter energy. That is so much, it's just so much in general. So again, not only does that suggest that she may be very fun to be around, she comes across as optimistic, larger than life, maybe even kind of theatrical or dramatic. Also, I've noticed with charts that do have a lot of Jupiter energy, there often is musical ability. And I know you can say, well, obviously I'm cheating. I knew that already because I knew about her. That is really true, though. Pisces is known to be maybe even the most musical sign. And this isn't something that I've heard other people recognize, but I really do view Sagittarius as a musical sign as well. I've known many people with particularly Sun and Sagittarius, but I know Moon and Sagittarius as well. I would really argue that's a very musical placement. Many people with a major Sagittarius placement, such as the Moon, can also be actors or performers, celebrities, things like that. Moon in Sagittarius is such an open, such a warm, expansive energy. And whenever you have Moon in a fire sign, even though the Moon typically represents a more private, more inward part of you, putting the Moon in a fire sign makes that very kind of explosive. It makes it more, it's so energetic, so passionate that it really does permeate to the surface, if that makes sense. Especially when we combine Sagittarius Moon with Pisces Sun. Pisces is the most permeable sign. You know what I mean? So her having Sun in Pisces, that means that boundaries may be a little bit foreign to her. She may be one to really push the boundaries, not only because of the Jupiter influence, but also the mutable signs in general. Pisces doesn't know what boundaries are. Pisces wants to go through everything. It connects with everything and everyone. Pisces really brings everything together in a way. You know what I mean? I think Pisces, anyone with major Pisces placements, they're viscerally aware of how connected everything is. It's almost like schizophrenic in a way. Not saying she has schizophrenia. I'm just saying, like, that kind of spiritual awareness of how everything is connected. That's Pisces. But anyway, because Pisces is so fluid and adaptable, it kind of shapeshifts with whatever's around it. Not only would she be that way, but also that's why the moon in Sagittarius, that fiery, gregarious energy would kind of permeate through. Even Pisces. Pisces is a very warm energy as well. So is Sagittarius. So, I'm just kind of ranting and raving because it's just such a fun energy. I haven't seen a chart with this much Jupiter in a very long time. I don't know if I ever have, if I'm being honest. So again, that looks like a lot of fun for her. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of Kamala Harris's chart, but for the opposite reason, because her chart was so devoid of Jupiter and Venus. It looked like she was, if anyone needs to have a good time, it's probably Kamala Harris. You know what I mean? Like, it looked like her life was not fun at all. That is like the opposite of this person's chart. I'm embarrassed. I don't know how to say her name. But yeah, her chart is a fun chart. Is she gonna have challenges in this life? Of course, everyone does. There are pros and cons to every energy. Even the easiest energy, like Jupiter, can have certain deficits. So, but I don't think deficit is the right word. If anything, it's the opposite of a deficit. It's too much of a good thing. So having so much Jupiter in her chart, well, everyone's talking about how quickly she's risen to fame, right? That very much sounds like Jupiter, because Jupiter, things can escalate very quickly when you have a lot of Jupiter energy. And, that can be extremely good, but again, it can be too much of a good thing. So much wealth, so much status, so much fame, publicity, having too much of a good time, maybe overindulging. These are all things that may be huge themes for her, which, from the outside, we may envy her and go, oh, that looks like so much fun. But there can be downsides. There can be risks and responsibilities associated with these really fun, gregarious energies, if that makes sense. Too much success too rapidly. What are the ramifications of that? You know what I mean? So that's why really I think astrology is kind of humbling, and it shows you that everyone is working through their own shit. We all have different strengths. We all have different weaknesses. Whoever you envy, they're working through some shit too, which you may or may not be. You may or may not know about that. So anyway, that's why there's so much Jupiter energy. But I also mentioned there's a lot of Venus energy as well. Definitely to a lesser extent. But Venus is the next planet that I really looked at. Some charts are more skewed toward a certain element. Her chart, I really start thinking about planets more so, though. So we already explored the Jupiter influence. That's by far the biggest thing. Even midheaven is in Cancer, which is the sign of Jupiter's exaltation. So the three kind of Jupiterian signs, Sagittarius, Pisces, and Cancer, she's got many major placements. Really, the bulk of her chart is focused on those 2 or 3 signs. But Venus as well. She has Libra rising, which honestly I think that's kind of a saving grace. I think Libra is it's a little bit more detached. It's more mild. It's more vanilla. It's much more conservative. I really think that's a very complementary, very balancing part of the chart, because she has so much Sagittarius, Pisces, so much Jupiter. She may be prone to extremes, clearly she has a very fun and soulful personality that's very characteristic of Jupiter. But again, things can get out of hand as well, especially at a young age. When we have a lot of mutable signs in our charts, we tend to be very open and very curious at a young age, and I think that can make it can mean that it takes us longer to mature, but that also means that we are that much more aware and that much wiser as we age, if that makes sense, having those mutable signs. But anyway, yes, Jupiter can be an extreme energy. It's generally abundant and plentiful, but maybe even too much so again, having that Libra rising, I think, is really balancing. That's really excellent. And because Libra is ruled by Venus, that means Venus is the chart ruler, and Venus actually is in an interesting position. Venus is in Capricorn, so Venus is not in not in exaltation or domicile or anything like that. But Venus is very close to the IC, and something that we learn about in astrology is that there are these four major points of the chart. There's the ascendant, the descendant, so eastern horizon, western horizon, and then basically the top of the ecliptic or somewhere close to the top of the sky, and then the descendant, which is, or the IC, which is the opposite of the midheaven. It's the base. It's the bottom of the ecliptic, like beneath the earth. So anyway, these 4 points, whenever you have a planet conjunct one of these 4 points, it increases in significance and intensity. So, not only is Venus the chart ruler, Venus is also conjunct the IC. So Venus is a major player here as well. I think it may be slightly more subtle. For one, because Venus's energy is more subtle than Jupiter, just in general anyway. But especially, Libra rising with Venus at the very bottom of the chart, there is this kind of sweetness and this desire for balance and temperance that is very present as well. Libra rising is, I think, actually the very last birth chart reading I did for a client just earlier today was Libra rising as well. And if you are interested in getting your own reading, definitely hit me up. My information is always in the description. Check out my website, etc. Yada yada. But Libra rising, they're known for just being very receptive. When you have Libra rising, it's very important to you to like facilitate the thoughts and feelings of others. So again, I think that's it's such a beautiful, complementary energy to the Jupiter side. Not only can she be, maybe a little bit wild or very adventurous because of the Jupiter side, but also very like open and receptive to the thoughts and feelings of others, because of the Libra rising. And she may attract very strong personalities because of her Aries descendant. I also did notice, Saturn is near the descendant and Saturn is in fall there. So that indicates she may have some really difficult situations with relationships, not just romantic relationships, but one-on-one interactions in general. I know Saturn's technically in the 6th house, not the 7th house, but with Saturn being so close to the descendant, it still has a lot to do with one-on-one interactions and relationships. And again, Saturn is in fall in Aries. It's in a particularly hard place. She was born, during that Saturn in Aries subgeneration, and people born, what was it, 1998? I didn't realize it was that late. I thought it was slightly earlier. But yeah, maybe 1996 through 1998, somewhere around that vicinity. People born in that subgeneration are very hard on themselves because of Saturn in Aries. It's a very difficult energy for them at a young age, but they have this potential for having a bulletproof self, identity and relationship with themselves basically as they mature, if that makes sense. But for her, that's irrevocably kind of linked to her relationships as well. She's very hard on herself, so that may make relationships challenging too. Plus, with descendant in Aries conjunct Saturn, she attracts very intense people. At least this is speculation now. I don't know if any of this is true, but based on her astrology, I would speculate that she attracts people that are very intense, very, I guess you could say masculine or dominating and intense, authoritative. She attracts very authoritative personalities, controlling personalities. And on some level she works well with personalities like that, but again, there can be some nuance here. I think that can be difficult as well. It wouldn't surprise me if, I don't want to wish this, shouldn't say these things, but she could attract some unhealthy personalities that are maybe too strong of personalities, that are too outwardly controlling or rigid or authoritative. But again, on the other hand, on some level she does need that. She needs a strong personality. Okay, I said I'd make this brief, so I'm going to go through my normal chapters that I do for paid readings, but I'll try to do a quick, a mini version of each chapter. And I almost feel like this is a little bit I'm kind of prying. Some of this is sort of private, but it's all speculation. I'm just speculating based on the placements. I don't actually know if any of this is true, but I will say I've been doing professional readings for years and I get very good reviews. Anyway, so let's look at, so something interesting. In this chapter, I talk about past life themes and karma. I talk about a person's challenges, their potential, and their upbringing as well. I always start out with the south node because north node is at 10 degrees Virgo in the 11th house. This means south node is at 10 degrees Pisces in the 5th house. For one, having, depending on the house system you use, I think this is Placidus. Yeah, it is. But she has technically Mercury, Sun, Jupiter, South Node, and Mars all in the 5th house. That shows huge creative ability, probably a lot of sexual energy as well, but a lot of like playful and creative energy too, which I mean that makes a lot of sense if you're familiar with her music. But anyway, so when it comes to past lives, having South Node in 5th house Pisces, South Node 5th house Pisces, 5th house Pisces. I'm talking so fast now. That would suggest that in a past life she was someone very creative, very spiritual, very creative. That's the main thing I see. Obviously, that spills over into this life as well. That's pretty clear. But yeah, I could see her being an artist, musician in a past life. That could definitely be a thing. Artist, something spiritual though. Like she was really channeling in other energies and feelings into something, some kind of creative outlet. You know what I mean? So, again, that's that. Sometimes it sounds silly because that's very true in this life as well, but that's not unusual. We tend to repeat many of the same themes from lifetime to lifetime. What she's learning to channel into this life that's different from past lives is represented by the North Node, which is an 11th house Virgo. So that would suggest um, being maybe more serious and more aware of physical restraints, becoming more disciplined, more in control. I think it's much more natural for her. Let me be careful with how I phrase things. Her placement suggests to me that it's much more natural for her to just go with the flow, and that's part of her charisma. That's part of, I think, what so many love about her is that she's just very like in touch with her feelings or intuition, I guess you could say, and she can just go with the flow of life. With all this Jupiter so strong in her chart, life is a journey for her. It's not about the destination. However, North Node in Virgo is suggesting that she's learning to be a little bit more grounded, I guess you could say. There's really not a lot of Earth in her chart. Only Venus. Venus is the only Earth planet. So being really grounded is difficult for her. This actually so much reminds me of the chart I just read. It's kind of funny. But yeah, for her, it's easier. The non-physical realm, I think, is easier for her. So it's easier for her to focus on feelings and vibes and inspiration and intuition and all this non-physical, even kind of ideas on a certain level. It's harder for her to be grounded in physical, mundane reality. Like that may be very difficult. So it wouldn't surprise me if, she may have certain escapist tendencies. She may not want to deal with the mundane parts of reality, especially mundane reality and how it relates to the group and society. We all have certain obligations and restrictions that we have socially. We have to maybe conform a little bit in order to operate or to function in a society, you know what I mean? And that may be very difficult for her, especially at a young age. It's gonna be much easier for her to completely negate all of that and just focus on her own creativity, her own passion, her own feeling. With so many placements close to the South Node, she's really channeling her past life and continuing those themes. To me, this suggests that some of us have themes that we wish to work on a soul level, and these themes may take multiple lifetimes. That's what I see for her. So what she's doing, what you see with her now, none of this is actually new to her in a way. The fame may be new, but what I'm talking about is the creativity, the spirituality, the feeling, the emotion. The creativity is a huge one. The artistic ability, musical ability, all of this, I really would strongly suggest that she's done in past lives. So that's what I mean when I say none of this is new to her. And there's nothing wrong with that. She's meant to kind of repeat these same past lives in this life, and that may be why she is, she's gotten a lot of fame and attention. Clearly, she is unique and interesting, right? She's gaining that attention for a reason. And I think part of it is because of this past life experience. You know, we tend to get good at things over time, right? Just like in these lifetimes, the same applies for past lives as well. So this is why she's so good at what she does. She has past life experience with everything, with pretty much everything she's doing. But yeah, again, I think the struggle though is actually um, in the community. So, for instance, most celebrity charts will have the planets at the top of the chart because the top of the chart is the most public. She actually doesn't have any planets in the, like, no planets were in the visible sky when she was born at all. The sun wasn't there, you know, it was nighttime. The moon wasn't in the sky. No planets were in the sky whatsoever. So it probably would have been a very great day for a very great night for looking at the stars because no planets were visible at all. But anyway, what this means astrologically is that, yeah, fame may actually be difficult for her, and she's even expressed that in videos for sure. But yeah, we can see that with North Node in the 11th house as well. So where was I going with that? So part of her struggle is balancing the nodes. This is going to be extremely difficult for her because she has so many planets around the South Node and no planets around the North Node. So she's fully relating and focusing on this past life experience, and she may make it through this whole life without branching out into the North Node. That's okay. That depends on free will. You know, whether she wants to challenge herself and to grow in this lifetime. Some of us aren't necessarily meant to grow, and that's okay. Like, you know, she has these huge abilities and this huge gifts, you know, that come from past lives that she's focusing on now. And, you know, clearly I think that has happened for a reason. She's meant to focus on that. So it's unclear to me whether she will, well, let me put it this way though. On some level, she does need to ground. You know, it's going to be difficult for her to, it's going to take a lot of growth for her to deal with mundane reality, deal with basic responsibilities, especially socially, especially publicly and with the world. So maybe in a weird way that actually is kind of, you know, like there's so much energy in the 5th house, it's almost spilling over. It's making her this sensation, making her this public figure, which kind of, it almost spills over into the 11th house, which typically has more to do with community and publicity and things like that. So maybe in kind of a backward way, I think this experience actually will challenge her to explore, you know, the constraints of being social and, you know, being a public figure, dealing with the public, dealing with different personalities, etc. Because that is a more foreign area for her. Okay, and the other major area of challenges is represented by Saturn, which we talked about a little bit. It's the one-on-one relationships, which sounds contradictory, but she's extremely hard on herself. That's going to make it hard to deal with relationships as well. And then especially with attracting such like super strong personalities, that may be challenging too. On some level, she operates the best with fellow like very strong personalities, but yeah, that can bring up its own challenges as well. And this is another area that, you know, wherever Saturn is in your chart, you know, things tend to get easier there over time. She is approaching her Saturn return. The Saturn return will really get kickstarted about halfway through next year, of 2025, when Saturn enters Aries. So that could be a time of increased difficulty for her, increased maturation, increased responsibility. For her, it may have a lot to do just with herself and her own relationship with herself, but it may also have to do with relationships as well. And I know that sounds weird because, again, Saturn is in the 6th house, not in the 7th house. So why am I saying that? I'm gonna be real honest with you. I don't really care that much about this particular house placement. What I care about more is that Saturn is close to the descendant. That angle is a big deal, much more so than, yeah, technically Saturn's in the 6th house. That's just how I see it. I don't know. So anyway, yeah, I do think she might have some kind of really challenging experience with the relationship, but this isn't all bad. It's something that may help her to grow with herself as well. And these are all, of course, just like probabilities, but that's what I would speculate based on those placements. Looking at her upbringing, sun and the moon square each other. She's born during a third quarter moon, which actually suggests her being this could not be more perfect because the third quarter moon is very philosophical in nature, and then especially because sun and moon are both in Jupiter ruled signs, it's also very philosophical in nature. So she may be extremely philosophical. Um, she has the potential for being extremely wise and intelligent. But anyway, so having sun and moon square, this suggests that her parents may have been very different from one another. They may have expected different things from her. Saturn in the sixth house and in fall, that suggests her father maybe being kind of estranged or not really connecting with her, not approving of her. There's some kind of disconnect there. Like they either just don't have a lot in common, or he doesn't accept her on some level. Moon is in the second house, which I think suggests a closer relationship with the mother. Kind of speculating there. Let's talk about her career and reputation. So, uh, honestly, I don't know. I'm trying to imagine if I didn't know anything about this person, what would I say? Just looking at the astrology specifically. So on the one hand, with all the Pisces and the Sagittarius energy, I do see her having musical ability, maybe being a performer, musician, artist. Combining that with Libra rising as well shows a passion for aesthetics, design, so and all of this, this is very much benefic energy. That's the main thing I noticed about her chart. That's the main thing I love about this chart. Combining Libra rising with Sagittarius moon and Pluto, which I haven't talked about yet, and then plus all that, that whole Pisces stellium, Libra, Sagittarius, Pisces. The one thing they all have in common is I think they're all optimistic. They prefer to keep things upbeat. They want to find the pleasure of life. They want to have fun. They want to have a nice time. They're kind of self-indulgent signs in a way. So yeah, combining all of them, I think would suggest that she's meant to create something beautiful for people. If I didn't know whose chart this was, I wouldn't know that she was a musician. It doesn't surprise me. But I could also see her creating something, I don't know, designing anything, just designing some kind of artwork, some kind, designing clothes, designing perfume, designing something that's meant to make life like more pleasurable or more beautiful in some kind of way. However, one key component though is the midheaven. Midheaven has to do with your career and reputation, right? And with midheaven and Cancer, that would suggest usually with midheaven and Cancer, I either see that person being a manager of some kind or doing something involving homes, working from home, being a caretaker, a homemaker, being a designing homes, building homes, cleaning homes, something with homes, anything with homes, home and family. So there's and I've known many people with that placement, and pretty much everything I've listed off, I've known at least one person with midheaven and Cancer who has had that role. But also, something that's very crucial about midheaven and Cancer as well is that Cancer is a cardinal sign. So although it may not always be obvious, Cancer is a leader. Specifically, they lead through emotion, since Cancer is a cardinal water sign. Or it's the cardinal water sign. So that means that when it comes to her career, her reputation, when it comes to these more public faculties of her life, if that's the right word, in these public areas, she's an expert at initiating through emotion, right? And that may sound obvious, but you don't have to be a musician to do that. That's why people with midheaven and Cancer make great, managers or leaders, great business owners as well, because they can be very personable, but they can also be, more powerfully than that. They can instigate through emotion. They can, propagate emotion, propel emotion, get that, project that emotion outward. With Libra rising and Cancer midheaven, these are very approachable placements. People with these placements come across welcoming and warm, and that's another reason why this is a great dynamic for being a kind of business owner or salesperson on some level. But also, again, combining Libra rising with midheaven and Cancer, she's someone who is asserting her own agenda, but she wants to do so in a way that is conducive to the energies that are already there. So especially if she's in a new environment publicly, she's going to be very attentive and very receptive to the energies that are there, to the feelings and the vibes that are already there, to whatever agendas are already playing out. So on the one hand, she will be very adaptable in the sense of like fitting in and conforming to those energies that are there. But on the other hand, she's also a master at projecting her own agenda in a way that isn't disrupting the status quo. Does that make sense? So it is a little bit nuanced and complex with Libra rising and Cancer midheaven, but I do think these are excellent leadership placements. And combining them with the Sagittarius and Pisces placements, to me, it just looks like a very creative chart. She's meant to lead through emotion and through creativity. Like this is a more creative chart than any of the celebrities charts I've read so far. I've read some pretty creative celebrities charts, but I mean, with that fifth house Pisces stellium, like some of these celebrity charts really blow me away. But anyway, so for the career, I mean, musician makes sense, but like I said too, something where she's influencing the emotions of others through something creative, through something artistic. So music and performance, I could easily see being part of that, but I could also see other creative or artistic passions as well, really really fitting into that. That would be very fulfilling for her, and she would be good at it, basically. What's interesting about her chart is that she has all these ingredients for a celebrity or for a successful artist, but again, there's something off kilter about that though. With no planets in the sky at all, no planets at the top of the chart, and with North Node in 11th house Virgo, she has all these ingredients for being a celebrity and being very well received. Yet at the same time, there's something off there. She may feel foreign to it. She may not want that kind of fame. She may not. I don't know. It's weird. It's because on the one hand, it shows. I feel like she'd be very excellent at handling attention and public recognition, but on the other hand, I think part of her may actually feel constrained by it, and that's the weird thing. She has so much expansive energy here in her chart, and yet that expansion in a weird way may almost make her feel trapped, and that's something that I think happens when not that I would know from personal experience, but when you do get that like fame and publicity, it can actually be very lonely and isolating. It can actually be almost like a boundary or a barrier in itself, and I don't think she's a person who likes barriers. With all that Jupiter energy, all the Sagittarius and Pisces, she wants to just keep exploring. And I almost see her. This is about to be a metaphor, not literal, but I see her as someone who's like a mountain climber, who's like going to the peak and going to the highest hill, and then you see whatever the next horizon is. She's constantly pushing the horizons and going to the next hill, the next peak. You know what I mean? So the publicity, the success that she has, that in itself may be its own boundary. That may be a struggle for her. Let's wrap this up by talking about romance and compatibility. I think that'll be fun. I haven't really thought much about it at all for her. But for most of this, I look to Venus, Mars, and the descendant. The other personal placements, of course, do have a lot to do with compatibility, but not as much as Venus, Mars, and the descendant. I will say that a million times. So for her, she has Venus in Capricorn, Mars in Pisces, with descendant in Aries. So these are all in different signs. They're all in different elements, but each one of these placements represents an energy that she's attracted to and an energy that she kind of needs romantically. I will say the one main commonality that I see is between Venus and the descendant, which in all honesty, those are actually the more major compatibility placements, even more so than Mars. And the one commonality I see is that with Venus in Capricorn and descendant in Aries conjunct Saturn, they go together in the sense that they both indicate she's attracted to authoritative personalities. Like, she wants someone who is kind of the boss in a way. I almost think of like like a slave master type of relationship. Like it's that extreme. I think she, at least romantically, it looks like she'd be very conforming, um, and more independent and more go with the flow. Like she wants someone who's more decisive, more black and white, a very strong personality for sure. Um, Someone either very confident or someone who's maybe more experienced than her, more mature than her in some kind of way. I think her chart suggests that's what she would be attracted to. With Venus in Capricorn, she has very high standards. Venus in Capricorn suggests that she needs someone who really has their shit together, someone very responsible, very independent. Someone who has their shit together emotionally, mentally, financially, all of it. All of it is well put together. Um, Her this placement suggests that what she fantasizes about is the future, is the long term. Her fantasy would be growing old with someone. You know what I mean? So that's why she may have very specific, very high standards. She's not gonna want to just mess around with whoever's just funny or cute or whatever. Like, romance may be very serious for her. She needs someone grounded, practical. So someone with major Capricorn placements or other Earth placements may be very attractive. Taurus could be interesting. Taurus is a fellow Earth sign. Taurus has a lot in common with Capricorn. Taurus is another sign that has its shit together. But Taurus is going to be a little bit more similar to her because Taurus is ruled by Venus. It has that benefic energy. Taurus is kind of the best of both worlds because it is very responsible, very conservative, and very stable. But it's also an indulgent sign. Taurus likes to have a good time, and so they may kind of relate on that level. Taurus, because it's ruled by Venus, it's also a more kind of stylistic sign. It's focused on beauty and things like that. So yeah, Taurus could be interesting. The difference though is that Taurus or Capricorn, they're much more constrictive. It's going to be very different from how she is. She's much more expansive. I think Virgo would be much more challenging. Virgo is going to oppose her sun, square her moon. It would be a sort of tense dynamic. Both parties may be open to that tension, though. It kind of just depends. But generally speaking, I think Virgo may be a little bit too difficult, too different. North Node is in Virgo, so people who have major Virgo placements may help her to evolve and to grow. But I think that can actually be a downside in romantic relationships sometimes, because if she's in a romantic relationship with someone who has a lot of Virgo placements, she'll be constantly growing and she'll be constantly challenged and constantly learning. That can actually be a drain. That can make the relationship less fun, and also less stable because nodal energy is not stable. So Virgo, I really wouldn't look at Virgo for her. Virgo could be passionate in a weird way. It could also be very tense. I think it would be a short-lived relationship, generally speaking. Taurus and Capricorn look more attractive for her, in my opinion. But let's look at the descendant as well. Because she has ascendant in Libra, descendant is in Aries, and it's conjunct Saturn. Descendant conjunct Saturn is almost reminiscent of Capricorn. So that's another placement that indicates Capricorn may actually be a very attractive sign for her. Someone with Sun, Moon, maybe Venus or Mars in Capricorn, or even ascendant in Capricorn. Those placements could all be very attractive for her in another person. But anyway, Aries is another huge sign of compatibility, though. With descendant in Aries, again, she needs a personality that's a little bit more forthright, a little bit more simplistic, more black and white. Someone fiery, passionate, adventurous, decisive, in control. So there needs to be some kind of balance here. She needs someone who is truly grounded and has their shit together, like Capricorn, but also someone who is decisive and action oriented, like Aries. Okay. So ultimately, I think someone with some earth and fire in their chart would be really attractive for her. A fiery personality, not only would she really need that in another person, it would be kind of like, it would simultaneously be an opposites attract dynamic, but at the same time, she would relate a lot to fiery personalities too because of her moon in Sagittarius. So yeah, Aries is another huge sign of attraction and compatibility for her. I think she would like how confident Aries can be. Aries is a very expansive energy. It is very authoritative as well. Um, Let's look at the other fire signs. So Leo, I think she would also have a lot in common with. Leo can also be very authoritative. Leo has a lot of what she's looking for. Sagittarius is going to be a little bit more intense because she has Moon and Pluto there. She's going to have very deep, very intense relationships with Sagittarius, and she has the potential for becoming very close to Sagittarian personalities very quickly. She may feel like she knows them already, even if they've just met. So Sagittarius could be very interesting as well. Could be a romantic situation. Sagittarius is a little bit unpredictable, though. I think she wants someone who's a little bit more authoritative, like I said. So that would more be Capricorn, Aries, even Leo. Sagittarius is a little bit more sporadic and adventurous. So I think she would relate more to Sagittarius, but it could kind of err on the side of being more of a friendship and less of a romantic connection. But if that friendship basis, though, that could be part of something greater if we have other placements, let's say someone has Sun in Sagittarius, but then Mercury and Venus in Capricorn. That would be a very attractive dynamic. But Sagittarius on its own, I see as being maybe more of a friend, more of a family member, more of a, I don't know. I don't see it necessarily being romantic on its own with her. We talked about earth signs, we talked about fire signs. She does have Mars in Pisces, which I know I kind of glossed over. Mars in Pisces, for one, it suggests that what she fights for is sort of non-physical in its essence. She's fighting for a feeling, for an idea, for a vibe. And what she fights for is constantly changing as well. It may be confusing and complex. Her own ambitions may be confusing and complex. That doesn't mean they're not worthwhile. It's just, she's fighting for her own creativity as well with Mars in 5th house. But anyway, what it has to do with compatibility is Mars does show like sexual chemistry and attraction. So with Mars and Pisces, she needs someone who's in touch with their feelings as well. So I know I'm kind of layering on multiple things here. But sometimes compatibility is complex. Hers is a little bit more complex, I would say. So she needs someone authoritative, decisive, action-oriented, but also someone in touch with their feelings as well. Someone who's not afraid to be emotionally vulnerable. So again, she's got a real high standard. She needs someone who's just the right amount of these different ingredients, I guess you could say. So yeah, Pisces may be an attractive sign for her because of her Mars. There could be great chemistry there, sexual chemistry, but also she may relate a lot with someone who has Pisces placements because of her Sun, Jupiter, South Node, and Mars all in Pisces. So yeah, Pisces could be definitely a great friend sign for her, but could be something more as well. But again, that depends on other placements. I would really like to see some other like fire or Capricorn placements as well as Pisces in the chart of her lover or relationship or what have you. Cancer and Scorpio, I guess, could be interesting. They are fellow water signs. They are the most in touch with their emotions, which she may be attracted to. Scorpio in particular has a lot of what she's looking for. Scorpio is ambitious. Scorpio can be very authoritative. Scorpio is a very strong personality. Scorpio is also in touch with its emotions. So in a weird way, Scorpio actually, Scorpio I think is the one sign that has the most in common with Capricorn, Pisces, and Aries. So all three of those signs where her major compatibility placements are, they all have a little bit in common with Scorpio, if that makes sense. So Scorpio is definitely a huge sign of attraction for her. Cancer, I'm not in love with Cancer for her because Cancer is going to oppose her Venus. It's going to square her descendant and her Saturn. It will trine her Pisces placements, but I see that as being more of a friend situation. Cancer will be aware of their emotions, which might be attractive for her, but Cancer is not authoritative in a direct way. Cancer is not openly authoritative in the way that I think she needs. Lastly would be the air signs. She does have Mercury in Aquarius, which I haven't mentioned at all. And I haven't mentioned how Mercury is conjunct the sun. So besides just coming across wise and emotional and creative, she also comes across very intellectual because of that out of sign conjunction with Aquarius Mercury. So that is another very complementary, very kind of well-rounded placement here. But anyway, so that does indicate that she can communicate actually very well with air signs. She thinks and communicates like an Aquarius because of that Aquarius Mercury. So, so air signs might be really interesting for her to have conversations with. But, I talked about her 3 compatibility placements. One is in an earth sign, one's in a water sign, one's in a fire sign. She's attracted to all the elements other than air, the air element, Um, and also being Libra rising, Libra more than any other sign is attracted to pretty much any energy other than itself. Like pairing Libra with another Libra or Libra with another air sign in general, it's like putting 2 negative magnets together. Neither one wants to initiate. It can be a very awkward energy. Libra rising wants someone more strong-willed than themselves, generally speaking. So, air. The air element really doesn't make sense romantically, in my opinion. Like I said, she may have great conversations with air signs, Aquarius, Libra, or Gemini. Gemini she may relate to in a weird way because Gemini is mutable. She has a lot of Sagittarius and Pisces in her charts. So her and Gemini, they will both be open-minded, inquisitive, kind of adventurous, very curious, very adaptable. They have some interesting things in common. I think they could have an interesting friendship, but I don't see a romantic attraction being there for her. And it's a similar situation with Aquarius and Libra as well. Okay, anyway, I want to keep this short. As I said, we're at 46 minutes, so that's pretty good for me. But anyway, if you like this, you can check out, I've done a playlist of other celebrity chart readings. Get a reading from me if you want to do that. And I appreciate all the other ways that you guys support the channel. It allows me to continue posting new videos. Okay, but thank you so much for watching. Hope you liked this. Let me know what you think. Have a great day.